To reinvent, we must choose to discard our comfort zone and learn to chase discomfort. What are your thoughts on that?
Growth is on the other side of discomfort. And you have to be able to recognize that maybe you're not in the right position in life. And I'm talking about work life. You have to have the courage to want to go do something different that aligns more to who you are, to your career principles, and to your passion principles.
I love that. And that brings up a statistic that my organization has shared in our new study around personalization, Arthur, that 78% of leaders aren't reinvention ready. In fact, 69% of those leaders don't even know if they're in the right roles today.
It's a perfect observation. And I think sometimes people think that when we say reinvention, especially with people's personal ambition for promotion, right? They chase the shiny object. The discomfort is knowing what you want, knowing what your superpower is, knowing how you have to transform, and then having the courage to go in that direction.
You are listening to Personalization Outbreak, a podcast about the collapse of traditional corporate standards in today's more personalized world. I'm Glenn Llopis. I'm a leadership strategist, author, contributor to Forbes, and founder of the Leadership in the Age of Personalization movement. On this show, I'm interviewing executives across multiple sectors to find out how the balance between standardization and personalization can exist. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Personalization Outbreak Podcast. This is a very special series focused on making reinvention your superpower and how to help people escape career quicksand and revive their future. With the special series, you should expect special guests, leaders who have not only experienced reinvention both personally and professionally, but also know that self-directed reinvention is non-negotiable. Our guest today, I don't even know how to describe him. His name is Arthur Valdez. But this is a very, very dynamic and unique individual. He's changed my life. He's made me see things that I've never seen before. And he's also had a lot of patience with me in my growth. And I really, really appreciate the person that he is, but also how he served to guide me rightly in my own reinventions. He's a truly special person, and I'm honored to have him here, as you'll all have the opportunity to reap the benefits from this incredible human being. With this in mind, Arthur is the Executive Vice President and Chief Supply and Customer Solutions Officer at Starbucks, where he brings more than 30 years of leadership experience in the operational supply chain and logistics industry. Now, Arthur has spent his career building customer experience and network solutions and solving problems across many key business areas, from product inventory management, retail store operation efficiency, manufacturing, distribution, and fulfillment, to transportation. Now, his prior roles in senior leadership included Target, Amazon, and Walmart. But see, I can't miss this important point. Arthur is the son of Mexican-American and Cuban parents. So this is my brother, as I'm Cuban myself. And today, he devotes his time mentoring other first-generation and minority college students. In fact, he proudly serves on the Global Leadership Council of the Colorado State University School of Business and is a board of director at Advance Auto Parts. Now get ready for a treat. Here it comes. Before we get started, please click the like button below, share it with your colleagues, and subscribe to our YouTube channel and social media at Glenn Llopis. Arthur, es un honor. It's an honor. Thanks for being a part of this special podcast series.
Thank you, Glenn. I appreciate it very much. I'm humbled to be a part of this experience, and I care for you and your show, so I'm looking forward to this. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Well, before we kind of get into the questions around the book, I really like to talk to you about two statements that kind of embellish some of the main learnings about making reinvention your superpower. So I'm going to throw some statements at you. Is that okay, Arthur? And we'll take it from there.
Absolutely.
So here's the first one. There is an urgent need for people to deconstruct what they've become to achieve in the world as it was and reconstruct who they are in order to be ready to thrive in a future that's still unclear. Arthur, how do you react to that? Not just from an individual standpoint, but business standpoint.
Yeah, Glenn, we're in a very different world these days, right? So how we operated before or how we engaged and led before, based off of these changes and different paradigms and requirements that are there to lead and to get success happen today, requires a different way of doing that. So people understanding how to lead through that themselves is critical in this transformation, personal transformation.
So what is it you believe is going to take for people to start reconstructing who they are so they could actually thrive in a future that's still unclear? What do you think is important?
Yeah, I think from there, I'm just going to use my personal experience here, Glenn. It's being more of who you are outside of work and bring that inside of work.
Hmm.
And what that means is it's okay to be you, right? The more vulnerability that you have and the more clarity that you have around who you are honestly and bringing that honest self to work every day, that helps that transformation go even faster.
I love that. And this brings us to this next statement. To reinvent, we must choose to discard our comfort zone and learn to chase discomfort. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, we've been talking about comfort zones and getting out of them for years, but now it's not about being forced to embrace discomfort. It's actually having the courage to go chase it.
Yeah, not only courage, right? But I use a statement all the time that is growth is on the other side of discomfort.
It's a
And
great one.
and you have to be able to recognize that maybe you're not in the right position in life, and I'm talking about work life, right? Maybe you're not in the area that you have the right passion principles for, and you're doing something that's just frustrating for you. Well, in order to stretch out there, you have to have the courage to want to go do something different that aligns more to who you are, to your career principles, and to your passion principles. And sometimes that courage is not comfortable, but on the other side of that is growth.
I love that. And that brings up a statistic that my organization has shared in our new study around personalization, Arthur, that 78% of leaders aren't reinvention ready. In fact, 69% of those leaders don't even know if they're in the right roles today. And I think that this is happening because with all this change happening around us, we're so used to knowing what box we should be in. And now that those boxes are becoming something completely different than what they've been in the past, it's creating this sense of confusion on, well, what role should I be in? So anyway, I thought I'd share that because, now as we reinvent, this forces us to not just examine the role that we're in, but maybe how we can help reshape and define the roles based on who we are. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that it's a perfect observation. And I think sometimes people think that when we say reinvention, especially with people's personal ambition for promotion, right?
Hmm.
They chase the shiny object. They chase going and working for the company that puts a good name on their resume. They go chase working for that leader who, I heard if I work for that person, then my career starts to move up quickly, which may be true based off of the company and the individual. But a lot of times what I see and when I try to mentor individuals is they're not happy. And the reason they're not happy is because they've started doing things that are not aligned to their personal passion principles. I'll use your words, Glenn. I think that have an impact on me all the time, which is they don't use their superpower, right? They're not using their superpower and they don't know what that superpower is. So when they go chase these things, they're chasing them for the wrong reasons, which that's not the discomfort we're talking about, right? The discomfort is knowing what you want, knowing what your superpower is, knowing how you have to transform, and then having the courage to go in that direction.
So well put, Arthur. So I'm sure everyone that's watching and listening to this has experienced that in their own careers multiple times. But Arthur, today we're going to talk about skill number 6, which is about lead. Because in the end of your reinvention journey, which I should course correct, there's never an end. It just continues. But as you multiply the things that you've learned throughout your various reinventions, it's all about how do we start sharing what we know, and this is where you're the master at, and the way you have not only managed your career but have such a deep focus in helping others manage their own, makes you so ready to have this discussion with us today. But before we go there, I want to give everyone a quick recap of the 6 skills of making reinvention your superpower. Number one is you have got to discover by harnessing your natural curiosity to discover something new. Then it's about knowing, grounding yourself in an open, always learning mindset. Number three is pursue. Once you've discovered and now you know who you are and what's going on around you, it's about revving up the engines for your ambition. And then as we move into number four, it's about building, but you can't do that alone. It's about taking action with and for others. And number five is trust, cultivating a deeply rooted sense of yourself and your ability to elevate others, much like Arthur's done with me. And then finally, lead, using your newfound influence to strengthen your purpose and make the world a better place. So let me kind of tee this up for you as we go into skill number 6 around lead. So when you reinvent in a way that's authentic, and this is what you were talking about before, Arthur, when you reinvent in a way that's authentic and true to who you are, you inspire others and they inspire you. Why does that happen? Arthur, why do you think that happens?
Yeah, that inspiration comes from your personal energy is just exposed, right? When you really understand that moment of that connection and that person's need because of what you have in that strength of your superpower, that strength is it leaks and it's exposed in a positive way, right? So that energy, it's influential and inspires in that way.
I love that, which takes us to another element of lead. It's for any of us to achieve the legacy that we want to leave. We have to be influential enough to have long-lasting presence in how we impact and influence others, not just in their work and in society. Why do you think this is so important? But if I may, Arthur, and you could decide to answer this or not, but why doesn't that happen enough sometimes?
Yeah, so I'm just going to use myself as an example.
Perfect.
Please, Glenn, because so my superpower is I'm okay and I feel very comfortable with positive disruption for problem solving, right? So looking at things differently, going deep and trying to the operational needs of something to serve a customer better, right? Is really leaving no stone untied. So because I'm comfortable in doing that, right? I'm also comfortable in teaching that. So that inspiration and that connection that you say people struggle with, right? Is that when it's not clear from a passion and from an inspiration of how to communicate what that can be, then it's intimidating for somebody else. And when that intimidation happens, it becomes very uncomfortable to want to go into that direction. So it's almost you have to be very inviting with your superpowers and not to be very provocative for a second. You can't take those and bang them over somebody's head. You've got to really be thoughtful in how you're approaching that change management with them. They have a passion to learn, so you should have the respect to do it in a way that inspires them because of the energy it brings you, it can bring them.
I love that. And when that happens, what happens? We start to serve in a way that preserves our respective well-being. And I just
Yes.
share that because we oftentimes think of well-being as something over here, but all this stuff's interconnected. And it's
Yes.
really about, community building and how we keep that momentum alive. And let's now go into the 5 ingredients in depth here, Arthur. The first one, again, uh, this matters a lot to you. It's about having meaningful influence. It's about sharing what you know. Arthur, why is it so important to share what we know, especially during a time of this uncertainty and volatility, which, by the way, I think this is the most opportunistic time in modern history. But I can understand why people might feel uncertain of it because they're approaching things where the environments almost go against what matters to you as an individual. So it's, in other words, people tend to want to control more and hold on to maybe their superpower rather than sharing it. Why do you think sharing what you know is so important?
Yeah, I think 2 words I'll use and then I'll explain it. Growth and belonging. Okay. So those 2 words, and I'll just a little bit of my career and how I felt, right? I got some advice early on in my career that knowledge was power. I didn't always understand what that meant early on, right? But as I worked through digging deep and understanding the technical aspects of the operation, the logistics pieces that I was working on, what I learned what that meant was that as you learned more of the details, you knew how to solve the problems better, right? So as I got older and I started leading larger teams, and my maturity as a leader became more about them than it was about me, right? What I was able to help create is that belonging that helped others grow, right? So instead of keeping that knowledge as a power for your own ambitions, for your own aspirations, is how do you do that to inspire others, to inspire a team to want to do the same, to where they're learning, because then it just multiplies, right? It just multiplies, and then they become part of this multiplier of how to change things and create things, and sharing that and watching others now grow and achieve. That's actually more exciting to me than it is about my personal knowledge anymore.
I want to just pause here and ask our audience, did you listen to what Arthur just said? He said that someone told him that knowledge was power. But notice, he didn't accept that at face value yet because he wanted to understand what that meant to him, not for his own benefit, but for the betterment of others. And if I may here, I'm just trying to point out something about sharing what you know. You know, you can't share what you know until you're ready for the responsibility to share what you know. And notice that this is exactly it. Look, Arthur's a humble guy. You probably already figured it out. But that's what he did. He recognized the power of what to do with what was shared to him so that he can create a force multiplier effect by saying, when I receive that, I need to be the student. What does that mean? How do I really practice that? And once he figured it out, that's when he started to share and lead with it to multiply the impact. So thank you so much, Arthur. I mean, your nuggets of wisdom are golden. Okay, let's go to the next one. Here it comes, build a culture of belonging, having empathetic connections. You know, we oftentimes, you know, are thinking and talk about belonging. And I started, as I was thinking about our call today, Arthur, I asked myself, how can we expect people to understand what belonging is if they may not know who I am in order to know that I'm actually belonging? And so I share this because I think I unknowingly took your approach. Like, what does this stuff really mean? And what I've learned is that, you know, belonging, it's not when you've arrived. It's really when you have reached a point of influencing because you've learned to know who you are. Because when people say you have to be more empathetic with others, and I always say, look, well, they don't say that to me, but when you hear, oh, we have to practice empathy, how can you be empathetic to someone that you don't really know? So anyway, you could run with that wherever you want, Arthur, but you know, in the end, why is building a culture of belonging important?
Yeah, I love this word because it's a word I didn't quite understand along my journey. That I'm still a student, but I create the importance and the value of it today more and more. And to be very honest with you, I retired from Target, and I think this is a big one that brought me back out of retirement was because I was missing this. So what is this, right? What I was missing is that there are times when companies get in trouble, teams get in trouble. They're not performing. They're not delivering on the expected results that the organization or that the boss is needing. And that moment is either you apply more pressure and get that pressure to deliver on that result, or you figure out how to work together, creating an environment where people want to work together, no matter how tough that pressure is. And to me, that's become the real measuring stick of my leadership today is no matter how tough the pressure is, am I creating a sense of belonging and teamwork? Maybe an old cliche, but teamwork makes that dream work, right? And how do you bring that team together to want to work together to feel trust, to feel confidence that that belonging exists to solve those problems to get the results. Because in all honesty, I've growing through the ranks, I've tried it all, and the pressure never worked for me. By the way, I actually chased people away versus brought people in. So I've really learned that that belonging is by creating an environment that, regardless of the pressure, you're creating an environment where people want to help solve that and win together. And that is a great lesson that I've learned, that if you don't bring that sense of belonging in everything you do, as the pressure gets harder and harder to solve, don't chase the people away. Figure out how to bring them in.
I'm letting that one sit. That was incredible. And why did that affect me as you were talking? Because again, when we're trying to find growth, and we don't have confidence that our people can do things, what do? We apply more pressure to them. And what does that do? It creates more resentment from the individual that's saying, no one's here ready to develop me. They're just trying to squeeze whatever they can out of me. I mean, that's just not sustainable. Obviously, it impacts people's mental health, well-being, their just whole aura of them. It shuts down because there's already so much that they're doing, and now they're putting more pressure. But this is a message I took away, is that rather than push the individual, make sure that collectively everybody on that team knows who each other is, so that everyone can have their back and create a collective force of belonging that is tapping into everyone's distinct skills, capacities, and potential.
That's correct.
But it's interesting, but I love how you framed it, because what I learned from you is that if we're still trying to push the individual, are we leading the way that we should be leading? And I think this is the moral of the story. Sometimes there are people and leaders that haven't reinvented themselves, and they go by what they knew from the past that may not work today. So
that's exactly right.
So I love that that story, Arthur. Thank you. Which I think takes us to number 3 here. And you mentioned some of it, right? Because to do what you said, you have to ignite and inspire others to do their best. How do you get people and guide people and create the environment for people to do their best, Arthur?
Yeah, I think for me, especially in the industry that I'm in, which has been retail operations, the problem is always right in front of you, right? You can always see, is it a lack of inventory in a store? Is it a truck's not on time? Is there a manufacturing plant that's not producing exactly what it needs? So that problem in the space, I've been very fortunate, has always been in front of us to see. Not always clear of how to solve, right? But the problem has been clear of what we need to do. So that getting others to be inspired with each other, getting them to work together, right? To me, has always been anchored by defining the problem correctly, right? And to be honest with you, Glenn, that's probably, as I look back on my career, that's probably what I've learned the most, that I'm most proud of today, that I would say is my superpower. Don't get me wrong, I got a lot of things I'm still working on, even in my career length that I've had. But this one I know I understand well, right? Is defining the problem, the operational problem to solve, and in helping the team truly recognize how to dig into the details to do that. And that moment of coaching and working with the team, that's the magic, right? Because you're getting others to recognize and see and think differently about exposing the root causes of those problems. And when you're doing that, they're working as a team. They're working in this sense of belonging in service of a mission, in service of an outcome, right? So if the outcome isn't clear, if the problem isn't clear, and the team is not clear, it's almost as if there's disruption, right? And I'll use a very simple example. If you and I, Glenn, were planning a road trip to go from Miami to New York in our RV, and we didn't plan our stops, we didn't plan we were going to get gas, we didn't plan where we were going to eat, right, and all these things, and we just took off, and we didn't know how much gas we had and how much food we had in the RV, there was potential that you and I could be arguing along the way of, hey, Glenn, how come you didn't put enough gas in the car? Glenn, how come you didn't put enough food in the car, right? Or the RV? All those things you have to start removing as friction points by solving for the right problem and getting the group to recognize that, right? So as simple as that example is with an RV trip, that's what managing operations has been like for me and helping others learn. how to create this interconnectedness.
Oh, so this goes back to helping people understand their moral essence. And part of that, this is what I took away here, Arthur, is that you have to help people understand what they're solving for and how they could actually contribute to that opportunity.
Yes.
In other words, they need to know what they solve for just as much as we need to know what we're solving for. And when we can connect those two things together, that's when we start igniting and unleashing each other. How did I do there, Arthur?
That's the magic. Absolutely. That's perfect.
Okay, well, this takes us to number 4. Now, it's a little bit different, right? You just talked about how to inspire others to do their best, but how do you help others be their best? Because this requires consistency and knowing how to safeguard one's human capacity.
Yeah, this is hard for everybody. It was hard for me, right? And I think we as people don't always accept our own personal areas for development or opportunity. But when you do, right? And when you do, and when you also know what your strengths are, you actually come to the table vocalizing those if the problem's clear, if the opportunity's clear, and you know the team that you're working with is clear of who that is going to be doing this with you. What I usually try to do is to bring everybody to the table and say, okay, who does good? What's your best? What are you bringing to this family, right? What are you bringing to this team? And that discussion just lets people say, well, I can do this and I can do this, right? And I have the data and I have this particular piece. And then you start bringing them all together. And then what once was not a strength for somebody has now become a super strength for the team because somebody within that team has had that strength, right? And you're learning from each other and taking from that. So bringing everybody together from a first being a vocally self-critical and transparent of what you can and what you cannot do brings others to the table in a way that makes it comfortable and a sense of belonging, as we were talking before, but also confident that your contribution matters, but that you can also learn from others as you develop this solution.
That is so on point. And as I think about what you said, this is a question that I actually bring up in the book, and and this is the environment that you're creating to actually answer this question. Here it comes, and you could answer it or just for discussion. Is the question is, what do we know about ourselves without knowing it? Right? What do we really know about ourselves without knowing it? Well, you said it earlier. You know how to take big problems and get to the core of it, and not just know how to solve around it, but put all the resources around it to get to where we need to go. And so when you know what about yourself, things without knowing it, this is over time starts multiplying. And I think that what you're trying to do is say, hey, to be yourself, we need to throw out all of our inventory on the table as a collective team, because maybe there's things that we could leverage that we already know exist, but maybe we could also discover things that we haven't utilized before. How am I doing there?
That's perfect, Glenn. That's awesome.
Okay, well, let's wrap it up with this, Arthur. Acknowledge, celebrate, and elevate life's interconnectedness. Now, this one, I think, really takes us, well, I'm going to let you tell us where it takes us, but this really brings it all together. And why is, having this attitude about having a thriving devotion to leading and helping others matter to you, Arthur?
Yeah, I think this is very important to me, and this is why I really enjoyed your book, Glenn, because I think this is the punchline of the book, in my opinion. Right? You go through this transformation, you go through this reinvention, you're going through all this development along your career and along the way, and at the whole time you're doing that, it's all about you, right? Which it should be. That is the primary objective here, is how you make that reinvention, how you make that transformation happen for yourself, right? But a sign of that you've done it, that you've gotten through that and that it feels better, is that it's no longer about you. It's about the people you're working with. It's about the individuals you're influencing, right? It's about you've learned to be so good at your personal reinvention and you understand the purpose that you bring around your superpower, that you're able to share that in a way with individuals that they are gaining knowledge, they are gaining trust, they are gaining a movement forward, which is that, growth is on the other side of discomfort, because each of them, they're either going through it or they've gone through it themselves. But when it's no longer about you and you're able to help others, that's when you're well on your way to leading and influencing in a very different environment.
I hope everyone has taken this one to heart, because, unfortunately, one can say that today's society is becoming more selfish. And maybe this is why we see certain divisions in society and throughout the world. But what you just crystallized really is the essence of our existence. Is our job is to help multiply. It's help create future legacies. It's taking what we've experienced and just sharing our story so that someone can help discover their own. That's what I got out of what you said, Arthur. And I even get chills saying this, because there's so many people, even within our own Latino community, that we don't know our story well enough when you just actually shared their story throughout this interview. And I share this because, we're at a pivotal moment. And I know people have said that for a while, but why do we keep saying it and saying it? Because we haven't learned the how. And the how comes from but the how actually begins with you, the individual. We've spent all our lives following a playbook. But this transformation, at least that I think is happening now, it's about reinventing ourselves to be a better contributor, not just at our work, but in society, and how these things are so interconnected now. And why is it? Because it's all about people. And it's hard to deal with so many different people, but I'll try to summarize what everybody wants. They want respect, but you have to earn that. And that means that you have to hold yourself accountable to self-direct your own reinvention so that you can share your story with how you did it with others so that they can start doing the same if they choose to do it. But this is kind of the world that we live in. Change is going to be constant. It always has been. The difference now is that, there's not a playbook for it, but this is your invitation to create your own for the betterment of the organizations that you serve. I don't know if you have a last minute comment, Arthur. How was that?
No, I think it's fantastic. Thank you once again for you trusting me to provide some thoughts to your audience here and to you. The journey for myself has not always been easy, which it is, right? It's always hard, and you go through that. But that's what it is for me, Glenn, is that all those reinventions and really understanding what I'm able to provide and not provide is also very important. What I cannot provide, but what I can provide, and anchoring to what I can provide in a way that delivers on the results for the team and the individuals now around me is what's most important to me. And I think that's what you're really getting at this book, which I congratulate you for, and thought you've done a wonderful job. So good job, Glenn. Thank you.
Arthur, thank you so very much. And I appreciate your time. And, I don't think I've mentioned this yet, but and I know I've told you, in our preparation, is that I dedicated this book for my daughter. She's 9 years old. And, 15 years ago, I dedicated my first book, Earning Serendipity, to my dad. And to think that now I'm doing it for my 9-year-old daughter, it makes me feel proud, not because of what I've done. It's because I've carried my father's legacy throughout my life, so that my 9-year-old, who never had a chance to meet my dad, can see it through my words. And I think this is just an example of how we can multiply the things that we know to be true for others to consider as they think about their own journey. So, Arthur, thank you so much. And as we end every show, when you make Reinvention your superpower, you will see things that others don't. Do what others won't, and keep pushing when prudence says quit. Muchas gracias, amigo. I really appreciate you.
Muchas gracias. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Personalization Outbreak. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss a show. If you enjoyed the content, visit ageofpersonalization.com to check out our free streaming video series and learn how to get involved in the movement. I'm Glenn Llopis. I wish you a good day, and remember, without strategy, change is merely substitution, not evolution.